the Planning Property Legislative Committee meeting on Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025 to order at 6 o'clock Central. Take a roll call. Do we have Lon filling in for Eric Saylor?
Here.
Eric Hummel's here, and President Mansell.
I'm here.
Okay, and I am present.
And another distinguished trustee is present as well.
Yes.
And another distinguished trustee is joyfully sitting in. Okay, I'd like to approve the agenda. If I could have a motion to approve the agenda in the minutes.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda in the minutes from the November 20th, 2024 meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Any public comments? I don't think I see anybody that
Nobody.
public. Okay, so there's none. I do not have any chairperson comments. So we'll move into number 7 on the agenda, update on DMI. Ben?
In your packet, you guys will see, I just attached, the board motion and the agreement that was made for the demolition permit. Last August, the motion was approved, and obviously this motion was, approved to be the work completed by December 31st of 2024. If you read the agreement that came from Joe Moore. So obviously the motion was made, but this obviously has expired. It's not on the table anymore. It's expired. So I'm reaching out to DMI. Betsy's included in my emails. Basically twice a week I send an email to Joe Moore and to Stacy. I've made calls twice a week to Joe Moore's company line, his cell phone. I get his receptionist, and of course, he's always in a meeting. So I asked Joe this afternoon at 2 o'clock that we had a meeting tonight. Could you please update us? So I'm still working on making contact with DMI. And obviously my question and explanation to DMI is going to be, this permit is no longer acceptable by the village because the board approved it through December 31st of last year. So you need to give us some information. So if you want to update this, we can update this demo permit. And obviously I highlighted some key points that need to be involved in this. Again, the contractor, the bond is huge, right? The village needs a proof of a bond. I mean, that's where this all goes from. So if he walks away, we've got a bond so we can hold somebody accountable to get this project completed. So I'll keep after him. There was some good news. I told some of you guys about 2 weeks ago. Scott from Jewel called me. He's the owner of Jewel. And he told me that his company is going to be in here doing some survey work on the DMI property, which is, again, this all goes back to zoning. That whole parcel right now is zone M1. We want to get it into PUD. So any future development, no matter what happens, we have the zone into PUD. And that's all supposed to be done by DMI. So there is a little bit of good news. And again, I was going to let Joe Moore that, hey, I appreciate that you got Scott from Jewel coming in here doing some work, because that's definitely in the right direction. So I do feel we do have a little bit of positivity. Obviously, we still don't have anywhere near what we're looking for as in bond and a contractor and demo permits and a lot of other things. So I'll keep after that. I know it's not the answer you guys are looking for. I know we want some hard facts, and that's what I'm going to work with Joe Moore and their company to get me an email where you're at so that I can bring back to you guys and we can try to hold them accountable. I know in the last couple months, people ask me, can't we do anything? I've reached out to Nick, our lawyer. We can't give them, we could write them ordinance tickets for, just like we do with other properties. There's garbage, there's broken bricks. Nick says, where's it gonna go? Probably nowhere. I mean, you're gonna get a big stack and he's not gonna pay it. He's not gonna fight it. If we agree in the next month or two, we don't get anywhere, we want to start writing ordinance tickets. I mean, we definitely let our PD do it. It's $550 a day. It stacks up. But do we really think Joe Moore is going to pay those? I mean, bigger, better lawyers and probably walk away from the property. I mean, he's obviously walked away prior to this and gave it back to Wood County. So that wasn't Nick's recommendation. Again, that we could try, but you know, we don't have any hard evidence to hold him accountable, unfortunately, because it's his property and you know, they can do what they want, unfortunately. So we'll kick that around as the next month goes for the DMI property. But maybe doing some ordinance violations, but again, I don't know it's gonna go anywhere either, so that's up to you guys. Anybody have any questions on the DMI property, I guess, before we move on to the next topic?
No, thanks for the update.
I have a couple.
Yep.
Juan, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess, like you say, the fines probably aren't gonna do much. I guess we can just try to have an open dialogue with them. Trying to rezone that is gonna be huge for us in the future. So I think we just kind of do what you're doing and try to say, try to work with them, because by throwing fines on them, we also don't want them just to walk away. But that's all I have.
So I have a couple questions, cause I'm trying to get in Joe's head and I've never met the man. Full and timely payment of all property taxes and water and sewer charges, is that happening?
Obviously taxes are still until January 31st. I can't, he still has time on that. He's paid the water. I mean, they have no water and sewer, right? So
Yeah.
there's no bill there, but on taxes, I'm obviously, January 31st, I can get that information from
Yeah, that'd be
Diane.
something.
From Diane and bring back to you guys or whatever. I mean, obviously, in the previous, he let it go, and that's why Wood County ended with a property, but I'll definitely keep you guys updated at the end of this month where he is with that.
Okay, thank you. And then the second question is, surveying the property is not a cheap investment. And so I'm wondering what advantage is that to Joe if he wouldn't be wanting to go forward? I mean, I'm looking for anything that would suggest something positive out of this.
Well, obviously, there's a whole talk right now with the Urkel Rail Yard, right? That's a big topic. That contract
Oh,
ends.
I see.
That ends October of this year. So obviously getting that property out of M1 manufacturing, put it in PUD, opens up his area to sell it and do other things with it, right? I mean, that's the whole, right now it's gotta be manufacturing. So put it in PUD planning to, unit development. He could sell off parcels to other people that could do different things with that property also. So I believe, he's looking out for his best interest also. He doesn't care. I mean, he's not about the village, but obviously if this goes to PUD, he has open areas that he can do other things with the property.
Okay. So maybe, and I'm just brainstorming
Yep.
here, maybe one thing is that we don't rezone it even when the survey is done until we get permits and stuff we want.
We could, and again, it's,
Something to think about. I mean, it isn't
Yeah.
like, we're not taking anything away, we're just not adding anything of value, at that point, but that's down the road. Just
Yeah.
something to think about.
what happened is previous administration changed this zoning from M1 to PUD. But unfortunately, to do this, there's mapping and we have to basically let joining residents come down here and plead their case why they don't want to change. You can't just go to the Wood County and change a piece of property. So
Sure.
there's a lot of back history to this because a lot of people thought this was done already and it wasn't done properly. So it's,
Yeah.
again, I definitely would agree with you. It's just, if we get this property back at any time, even the administration of Wood County owns, I mean, if this goes into PUD and somebody else pays the bill, they can take that piece of property and do other things, but hold them accountable for it. I do agree with you 100%, not to benefit him. So I definitely, as
Yeah.
this comes together, we'll definitely have.
Yeah, I mean, we can do
Consideration.
everything up to requesting it. And do hey, as soon as we get the permit, we'll move on that.
Yeah, for sure. No, any
Okay.
leverage we can use, great idea.
All right.
Can I ask a follow-up question to yours, Eric? How does it technically get rezoned to PUD? Does it have to come through committee to the board?
So what it does is we'll have an open, that goes through,
Public hearing.
we'll have a public hearing and then it goes through our planning group. And then it comes to the village board for motion, it's kind of like a CSM map. Cause obviously it's a zoning map, which the
Yeah.
full board will agree on, then we go to Wood County and Jason changes the zoning over.
So we
Yeah,
can
thank-
we can continue that discussion when it gets to the board.
Absolutely.
Okay, I do have one other question. Would you know their property tax amount for 2024?
I wouldn't know that offhand.
That's fine. Thank you.
I can, like I said, when next meeting, I'll make sure I make a note to see where they're at with their property taxes, and I can get you those numbers in my report for,
Yeah,
next
I,
month.
my purpose was if it's a huge amount, then they're putting some investment into it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they're still getting a check from, Urkel for the railroad tracks, and the
Mhm.
roundhouse is still getting, rented out by Domtar Paper. So I mean, they're definitely have a source of income on a weekly basis, or not a
Okay.
weekly, monthly, whatever it is.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
Thanks for the work.
yep, you want to move on to number 8, if there's no more questions on DMI?
So then we'll go to the 160 Market Avenue property. I guess we all call that the old post office property. I did have a conversation, last week, Thursday, with the owner of it, to development group kind of. And he told me that he's, working on finding a local contractor here to start on the repairs. I said, we're gonna keep, issuing you ordinance citations until at least you give me something in writing that says you've hired a contractor and you pulled a permit. And then we can start talking. Up to date, as of today, we're up to $13,000 in ordinance tickets. And again, this is another one of these deals that, since it's owned by a corporation, this doesn't come from me, I don't make the rules, that there's no personal name to, we can't hold anybody accountable. Normally, if people have, ordinance violation, things like that, and it's owned by a person, they can go after that person, we can make them have to pay that. But since it's a corporation, there's nobody, you can't connect anybody with us, and that's what I've been told, by basically our attorneys and other sources. So we're stranded because it's in a corporation's name that there's nobody personally accounted for this money.
Did he
So
give you a potential time frame for finding a local contractor?
he told me within a month. I said, we had a meeting, I try to call these people prior to our meetings to let them know, hey, we got a meeting coming up. Can you give me an update? And he promised me the next meeting, but again, I'm not gonna hold him to the fire. I've got his number and I've called him 3 or 4 times. And I'll keep after him. And again, we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing. And, suggestion from Nick is at a certain point, the village can take over this building if we feel we've got, citations up to it, we can try to do some legal stuff. Nick's not recommendations on that, and give it a couple months here, maybe this spring, if we hit it, then we go the next step and attacking this property owner with more legal papers. Obviously, we served him, legal papers that Nick did, making sure he's getting these letters and stuff like that. So at this point, I guess it sucks, but we're kind of ride and wait and keep after him. Obviously, I want to personally get some of this stuff cleaned up as we get into the spring, and I made Nick aware of that. Like, we're only gonna drag this on. We're gonna go to the next step, no matter what it is. Unfortunately, it costs the village money, but we need to move on with that. So that's kind of the update on the 160 property. Anybody have any
Yeah.
questions?
No.
All right, so number 9, this was kind of brought, for you guys last month. You asked me to, get a hold of the Cyber One, owners of Cyber One, get their financials, which we had it in our, agreement that was signed back in 2011. The village, could get their financials one time a year and use, Rob Ziegler, a local banker, to look at their financials and, give a feedback to, the village administrator on where that was at, and he would share that with, you guys. So I was able to get that information. Jamie would work with me well, got that to Rob, met with Rob. In Rob's simple terms, I mean, he's not making huge money, he's not losing big money, right? I mean, the numbers they're right there. Kind of what we figured, right? So we went back to the next step, and I've been working with Jamie. I've had a good relation with Jamie. And we ran the numbers, and Diane and I worked on this kind of sheet that I got in front of you. So you guys kind of know where we're at. Obviously the balance due of today is 134,850. This agreement, it was supposed to last till 29. The village board made a motion, during COVID to extend it for 9 months. So that turned it to 2030. That's all legit. We've got the motions, no problem. The biggest issue is he's missed a lot of payments, in the last couple of years, and puts him behind of 37,200. He's behind as of January. No bank would let anybody get behind $37,000 if this was a bank. We've got our agreement is great. I work with Nick. Betsy's been in some of them emails also. Nick has no problem with our agreement going after Jamie, and unfortunately, anybody that's been involved in this, there was another gentleman that was involved in this original agreement. His name was signed and documented. He's no longer part of this organization, but since his name was on the agreement, he's still reliable for this money. So what I'm looking for and is for you guys to give me a verbal approval from you guys that I can get a hold of Jamie. Let him know what he's behind. He knows. I mean, I've reached it, but you know, what can you do, Jamie? Give him a month, you know. I'm gonna push for the 37,200. You know, I don't know if you gotta go to the bank, borrow the money. What do you gotta do? What can you do? You know, what can you come up with? And obviously at that point, I have Nick's request and kind of recommendation is the partner that's no longer involved in the company to have a conversation with him. Just let him know that he's actually responsible for half of this too. I mean, if you know, if basically the Cyber One decides to fold up today, I mean, the 134 gets divided by 2 and they're each responsible for it because each signed the agreement. And it goes down to personal properties. I mean, it's a great agreement that was written. They're held for it. Not that you could go out, you know, anytime you go out of state and try to get money, it gets tough. But, you know, we could definitely do a lot of legal stuff to get our money. But I'm hoping we don't, because I don't want to see them also fold up and walk away. So I'd like to work with Cyber One now that we have the numbers, we have the financials, and see how we can come up with that $37,000 or close to it to get back on track before we go the next step, which legal matters would be.
Okay, are you open for discussion on what our next plan of attack or options would be?
Well, I think
From-
that's a good idea, as long as Ben has a good relationship with them, say, hey, you're 37,200. You're gonna have to try to come up with that, or you're gonna have to try to work some kind of number here because you're late. Otherwise, the board's gotta take legal action, because this isn't really, this money is actually taxpayer money. It's from the TIF district, so, I mean, I think we would go after anybody else if it was taxpayers' money that we loaned and they're not paying back. I'm not saying that we need the whole $37,200, but I think that they can come up and do something and show in good faith that they're willing to make good on the loan. I mean, I think like Ben's right, any other place would probably repossess a vehicle or a house, and it sounds like the contract was done in a manner that we could go after both of the parties for their property or income, or if it had to be, I mean, I know there's things where if they get income tax refunds, they probably can go after that.
Personal property is mentioned right in the agreement. That's one of the highlighted items, so.
So I have a little bit different point of view. Mine would be not to ask, what can you do? But I think that the first question is, what's your plan to get by the end of the month, $37,200 to us? I'd like to hear your plan.
Yeah.
And if they say, well, we can't do that, well, why? Tell me why. And well, what's your plan to get us at 37,200 if you can't do it by January? What is the plan? And at least force a plan out of it, as opposed to, well, I could give you this much. It's like, no. This is 2.5 years. And the thing I read says, well, we're gonna have to go slow. Well, that 2.5 years is pretty slow. So that's just my take, is to start with what you plan to get us that money, and it's due by the end of January. See what they say and push for the plan for the whole amount, even if it have to extend it time-wise. But I really discourage saying, well, what can you do? Because you're gonna get something that's not satisfactory probably to the board.
Oh, yeah, and again, this comes back, I mean, no motion tonight, but I mean, you know, the board can decide at the next meeting that we want legal matters and we get Nick involved. I mean, that's you know, no matter what he comes back at it, I mean, if it's right or wrong, you know, we obviously at the next meeting, you know, we could have a motion on there to to move to legal matters, you know, depending what we reach out of him.
I mean, I'm not trying to be super threatening, but I just, again, 2.5 years.
Right, but I think you actually, you know, by say what you're gonna do by the end of January, it's almost the end of January. I think
Yeah.
you have to give them 30 days or something. Say, give us a plan.
Well, why do you have to give them 30 more days? It's clear that that's what's due by January. That's what it is. And if you can't do that, what is your plan? And that's saying the same thing, but it isn't like, yeah, we can extend it. Or, what do you think you got? I wanna know what the plan is, and you can just tell them the board is interested in getting a concrete plan to get that money. And, it's due at the end of January. So tell me about.
Can I answer one thing? I think that one option would be to add the next payment in and say it's due by the end of February. So it'd be 39,000 or something. So that's
That's
one
50.
option.
Yeah, $1,500 a month is what the payment schedule set up for.
So I agree.
Let's start with that. Why would you wanna start with that? Cause you're giving them an out again.
It's an option. If they can't, you're right, it is late in the month. It gives them about a week. We can start with that. I do, thank you for your input. President Mansell, do you have any other input?
I'm kind of like in between both, like, right, I think we do need to give them a notice, but I think, okay, well, in order to, what is your plan to get you caught up? And what about a plan of, okay, what is it, 1,500?
Yep.
Okay, can we jump that up to 2,500? For the X amount of months, and then in good faith with that, then we can have another conversation where you are. That's just my thing, trying to blend the two, like, you're right, we don't wanna be too soft. We need to have a plan and they need to be executing said plan too, but I do think we need to give them 30 days or by the next February pay date. To give us that plan.
Yeah, I just think that's the backup option, not one we offer at the start of the.
I'll do a report with them. I
Well,
guess.
the problem is, I mean, again, and again, as anybody knows, I'm open with everybody, right? And I've told them, I said, my biggest fear is you're just gonna shut the doors and walk away. And I said, we're gonna end up with nothing. And I said, I mean, he lives in Florida and the other guy lives in Texas, right? I mean, anybody that knows anything about collecting money from out of state, it's about impossible. So, I mean, my worry is that we end up back with a $30,000 building if he runs. So, but do I believe, I mean, do I mind the relationship? I told him the other day on the phone, I said, the board is gonna recommend, and I'm gonna ask for you to come up with this money. And I said, so be prepared it is. And obviously what comes on about this is, you know, me talking to him means nothing until we tell Nick to send him something that has attorney letter on, right? I mean, I'm trying to work with him so we don't have to spend the money and we don't get to that next level. But I mean, if the board gives me approval to try to come up with something, if you want me to ask him for 37,000 in a week, a month, it doesn't matter. But obviously, if I get no report back that you guys like and I like, at that point we go to Nick and Nick sends him the letter that says you owe the village $37,000 in whatever Nick decides in 30 days or 20 days. And if they doesn't come up with that money, then Nick goes the next level and basically starts foreclosing on his property. I mean, that's the long term. The long term of this is that it ends up going to Nick and he ends up starting to foreclose on this. You know, I agree with you. I mean, I would say, you know, February 5th or something I could give him. I mean, again, I could call them around and tell them the board wants their money by February 1st, right? I mean, he's gonna be, you know,
Okay.
see what he does. I agree with you. There is no right or wrong answer. And again, but we can.
You could give him 2
You know?
weeks. I mean, if, because he said, that's the end of next week. Yeah, okay, 2 weeks in. I mean, look, I'm trying to be, I know it sounds very harsh and be provocative, but this is a negotiation. And you start with what you want, right?
Yep.
And, just watch about 2.5 years, we've been working on this with you, you know, and so it's gotta come to an end. And I need a plan, and maybe it's even inviting him to come to a meeting here and explain what his plan is to.
I mean, this is the first time that anybody's pushed the buttons here, right?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, this isn't, I mean, again, we're not here to knock stones at anybody, but, you know, I just took this over here about a month ago and dived in and brought to your guys' attention. So half of it is that I'm trying to work them a little bit, because I mean, we've been letting it go, right? Shame on us, but again, we moved past that. But how can we make this, correct the
My,
situation.
my recommendation is gonna be that we give it to Ben and tell him to be more aggressive with them and try to get it and at least give them 2 weeks to try to get all of the money. And then as a backup plan, we do some of the discussions that you have and let it in Ben's hand to go after him. And then saying if it doesn't happen within a month, we're gonna potentially pursue legal action at our next meeting.
We may have to do that, and I don't want to go
Well,
there.
no, the next meeting, I mean, if I don't get anything right or wrong, there'll be motion on the table to send it to.
Correct. Are
to
you
attorney.
okay? Are you okay with that plan? Are we?
I'm good with it. I mean, and I'll keep you guys updated through email, the committee members in the next,
Trustee Radke, trustee Hummel, President Mansell?
I'm definitely okay with it, and I'm okay with saying, none of us want to do that.
Hmm.
But we've got a fiduciary responsibility to taxpayers and the TIF to be responsible for that money. So hopefully we can stay away from that. How can we make that work so we can stay away from it?
100% agreed, but we need to give Ben the authority and the latitude to go and try to get some of this money, hopefully the full amount.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions on Cyber One tip loan?
It's not fun work, I know.
Nope.
It's up.
What you gotta be done? You're correct. We gotta be fiduciaries of the village.
Yeah.
Number 10. You wanna go through the agreement quick and then we can look at a possible motion? Or do we make the motion first and then go into discussion?
Then we can discuss
Yeah,
it.
make the motion
Okay.
first.
Do I have a motion to approve or move to the board the facility use agreement?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Radke.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we move the facility use agreement, approve it and move it to the board. So any discussion? Now we can go.
So, obviously this has been a topic for years, all right? No matter if it's a Port Edwards Lions Club, Little League, Fire Department, people use our facilities to hold their events, sporting events, fundraisers, anything like that. So we're trying to clean this up. So I got a facility use agreement from Wood County, one of our board members, and started with that. Got it kind of jotted down into village form. Sent this over to obviously Attorney Apps. At the end of the day, he needs to approve everything. And he made his comments to it, took a lot of the language and expanded on it, made it bigger words, covering the village in all directions. Not so much user friendly, I guess. I look at it, but I guess more covering it. And again, at the end of the day, he's the one that makes the decisions and has to be covered underneath any agreements that are signed by the village, if something would happen. So like I said, and this would be, once a year, I would meet with the organizations. They would fill this out. They would write down the dates of their events that they know about. Obviously, that could change out through the year. I would update you guys underneath the administrator's report and the board meetings, just saying, hey, the Port Edwards Lions gonna have these events. Everything is signed and good. So this wouldn't be something I'd bring every month, or you guys wouldn't really get involved in it. I would update you, but the agreement would be between me and the organizations. And we'd have it on file every year. So I guess that's what I have. And you guys we can have a conversation. Any questions on it, let me know.
I have a question. So, it says dates and facilities to be used. A lot of these places, Lions, wherever, have like the year kind of planned out. What happens if something pops up? Do they have to sign another one, or do you just add it to?
We've just added to it.
Okay.
So what we're gonna do is they give us the dates they have now. And then if something comes, I'd tell them they need to reach out to me a month before their event, so I could put it on here and have it. And that way, underneath administrative report, I would say, just for you aware, the Port Edwards, whatever's having a fundraiser on this event, everything is filled out.
Okay, so this kind of helps instead of, the 5 or 6, we're not filling it out for every single one.
Once we get
It's just once and done.
once a year, once this is filled out, and we can add dates and times if they decide to do that. I mean, obviously, I can go right now to the fire department, they know their fireman's dance, they know their brat fries. The Lions know that, Little League knows their dates of their tournaments, their summer league ball. We can get a good general dates, put on these now in January and sign in if something pops up. They just need to let me know.
Thank you.
So my question is, are there, and I'm just trying to be thinking about how some organizations may think about this. You use that fire department as putting something in there about the agreements. Are there other chapters that cover other areas that same
So,
wording is in?
No, unfortunately, that's why the next page, this would be in the fire, and then we'd also add this to chapter 12. We'd be adding, facilities use agreement, so that would cover everybody. So the next, there's actually, when we do the ordinance, there'll be two spots where we'd be changing, the chapters, of chapter 5, fire department, chapter 12, adding this to it, so it covers everybody.
Yeah, I'm just,
Is,
go
is
ahead.
this motion just for the agreement or for the ordinance?
Agreement is where the motion is actually.
Oh,
Okay. So we'll, I think Eric,
To-
trustee
to
Hummel,
agreement.
go ahead.
Yes, oh, so.
That's the next motion.
Right.
That's the next motion. My apologies for
Yeah.
jumping ahead.
That's understood. The one question I did have, and I talked to Ben earlier about this, is the insurance side of this. Now, each of these, there's nothing in here that I saw that talks about insurance of these particular users of the facilities. Are we required to have any copy of their insurance or anything on file when they use these
So
facilities?
we remember back when we had a conversation about the fire department having, chili feed or whatever, our insurance company said everything was covered underneath our buildings. If they wanted to get insurance probably to cover their officers, meaning their people, they could do, but our insurance company did not, recommend any, insurance for that. Basically, I know from Wood County right now, I'm renting my name is on the Lions, we're renting the shelter from Wood County. And we needed to show our insurance policy to to Wood County that the Lions Club has, same as the school when they'd use this facility, same as PIBA, and all these organizations have insurance policies. I mean, Nick has it written in there, not so much your insurance, but everything is, you're responsible, you take care of this. And, we could ask basically for that copy of their insurance, from the Lions, from those other organizations to make sure we have it stapled to this. But and I did question Nick on that today. He's like, well, you got it. I got it all written that they're responsible for everything. I didn't write the insurance on there, but he says that you guys are not responsible for anything. So I said, well, if I get a copy and a staple to that, and he said, well, that'd be up to you. But at the end of this agreement, it's their responsibility how he has it written.
So the village would be protected from a legal standpoint, whether or not we have that insurance agreement.
Again, that was, the attorney wrote this, so that's all I can that's all I can say.
That's fine. I just wanted to have that discussion so everybody hears the same thing.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Trustee Radke?
I read it through. I think it's fine. I think it's a good idea to have it.
Can we go, off table? I don't know, like I said, Mr. Fluger definitely got me started and I appreciate that. I don't know if he has any comments to that, if he has anything.
No,
We can go off table.
Thank you, trustee. Yes, it's basically, I provided Ben with a copy of the facility use agreement that we use in Wood County and he took it and went. There's some legalese in here that's a little confusing. On first glance, people are gonna be looking at this and they're gonna say, I understand half of those words. But it is very thorough and very all encompassing and definitely protects the interests of the village. Without having looked at your policies, typically, unless there's a negligent condition or a negligent act on behalf of the village, your liability policy is gonna cover pretty much everything. So if we allow cockfighting in a village building, we're obviously not gonna be covered, but anything else with normal usage that we allow these organizations to do is pretty much gonna be covered based on, the policy that's typically carried by municipalities.
Okay,
So
thank you.
again, it's incredibly thorough, it's incredibly well done.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, thanks.
I do have one other quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
What is the normal procedure for alcohol consumption? Cause this is gonna be the same thing you use for like the shelter building at Ripple Creek and things of that nature, correct?
So our parks reads right in there in our parks that people can have alcohol in the parks. So if
Okay.
that's what you're asking about me on, it's been a hot topic for years at sporting events. If if they wanna have beer there, it's a park, they can have it. Basically, that's how our ordinance reads. Anywhere in a park area, you can have alcohol. So that covers us down at Ripple Creek and also covers us over here. Anybody that wants to sell it, obviously, we have to buy the seller's agreement, which, you know, that was brought up the last meeting, but our ordinance does cover anybody in the park basically can drink.
Right.
This was a hot topic, years ago, baseball and softball, parents would have a few cocktails or their kids are playing and this got into a heated up conversation after lawyers and attorneys and everything. It's the park areas for you can do what you want. You can drink and, you know, follow within the rules. If you're disturbance or if you're underage, obviously then our police department would get involved, but otherwise, if you're there socially drinking, it's legal. Just, you know, if I have a graduation party down at the park, and I rent a shelter and I bring a cooler beer, it's a park and we have nothing that says no to it.
So it looks to me right now, if you sign that agreement, that you won't be able to bring that cooler anymore.
Unless pre-approved by the village.
Correct.
Well,
Is that-
is this for organizations or for individuals, I guess is the question.
This is just for organizations only, so that's just.
Does that answer your question, trustee?
It does, it does.
So basically, the people that are going to have alcohol, obviously, I mean, if when it comes to the fireman's dance, they're gonna be getting an agreement for that. The Lions, I'm gonna ask them to give us just, hey, at their meetings, they have alcohol at their meetings, which they do. You know, they'll have some attached sheet to that. Obviously, the school doesn't have alcohol for their sporting events and the Little League doesn't sell alcohol, so. And the fire department doesn't have alcohol, so the only one that this concerns to really is, the Lions, well, because they do have alcohol at their meetings. So I'm gonna ask them just to attach a written, you know, just asking for approval for that. So, but good topic, because I read that too, and again, you can take a lot of different areas, but this is just for people using our facility. Obviously, we still have our rentals. When you borrow for graduations, that's a whole separate form that, people fill out in town. So this would just be for organizations.
Makes sense.
Would it, and I agree, thank you for that input. Would it pay to put organization facility use agreement?
On the top, I don't,
Yep.
whatever you guys make the motion however you'd like.
I think the way it's written is good.
Okay, that's
Facility
fine.
use.
As long as we have the understanding, we're on the same page.
I think the understanding is a big thing.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, then I'll take it to a vote that we approve this motion and move it to the board. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried and moved to the board. Thank you. And now, number 11, the rewriting of the ordinances. I would like to look for a motion to update the village ordinances on this newly adopted facility use agreement.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second? I'll second it.
I'm putting Hess down just for the record.
Okay,
I heard it
that's
first.
fine. So it's, any discussion? I'll open it up for discussion.
So in our ordinances, which, I looked today, obviously we added this in the fire department one. But then we, added this, we have no spot in our ordinances where it says facility use or anything. So we looked at the best area that it fits in, license and permits, and added a facility use agreement. And so in section 12, the renting organization is responsible for signing the agreement from the village, for village property for any fundraising events to be updated yearly. So we had it in two different spots. So the fire department has their own and any other organization is underneath chapter 12. So we'll be looking for two areas, chapter 5 and chapter 12, to add this facility use agreement to, because we don't have anything, basically a general area to put it, unfortunately. So I wanted everybody not to be singled out, everybody covered. So that's what we found would cover everybody.
So, question for me is, what's the response if a firefighter says, why are you singling out fire department to put it in there, but in no other particular, organization have you put that in there, but you just made a broad statement over why are you putting it in ours and nobody else's? And, as opposed to, aren't we also covered by the ordinance 12. So why are we doing that? I'm just looking for somebody who's gonna say,
You're probably right.
picking on us.
You just, it's been a hot topic in that department, and I know the chief and the department wants to make sure it's clarified. So again, you could take it out of 4 and just put it, you could take it out of chapter 5 and just put it on chapter 12. I mean, we can amend the motion. That's up to you guys. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear on that.
And for me, and just me looking at it, that's really the only department wise that holds functions with alcohol. The Lions Club has their picnics or whatever, but that's not necessarily related to the village. It's not a village department. So that's
Yeah, I'm
why,
just thinking-
that's why it makes sense to me in there, but that's again.
Yeah, and
just
I
me.
think the only reason the chapter 5 is the fire department are actually village employees. And where the other, and to move them, you know, if we're saying that we're not really, they're in a different boat because they are village employees. Where this, agreement, facility use agreement is for any organization, Lions Club, baseball and whatnot. Where actually the fire department are considered village employees of the village. That's why having it in 2 different places, we're not singling them out, but
Yeah,
they're
yeah, you
different.
are singling them out. What if the police department, I know it's a small group, decides they wanna hold an event? Does it say, does it apply to them as well? I know fire department's the only one that's been doing that, but it doesn't prohibit other employee groups from holding an event. So, how do you justify singling out one employee group, but not the others unless you encompass everybody in there? I'm just trying to be conscious of the fact that, it could appear that we're singling them out. And I hear the rationales because you guys are the only ones that use it, but that may not be the case in the future.
Can
We
I
don't
add, can I add
don't
one
have
thought? This is, I don't know if the police have this same type of 4.13 activities, organization and fundraising. And it does fit under here because they do have fundraising events. So in order to do a fundraising event, you have 4 of the agreements, you have to complete this agreement. Because it talks about fundraising, organization, or activities, organization, et cetera.
And I
There's a
think,
pl-
just clarify me if I'm wrong, trustee Reggie, it's because, and it's to that point that, Chairman Hess said, but then, like, police department, they can't fundraise, correct? It's like they can't do those, it's like a tricky,
In our policy, we are not to solicit funds.
right?
That's in the police policy that, we are not supposed to go and, we're an organization because we're not considered one, they are employees, but they're not volunteer employees like they call the volunteer fire department. So for us as a police department, the police department are not in our policies. I know that there is a policy saying we're not to solicit
I
funds.
just remember Zerflu saying that all the time. I
And
understand what you're saying.
we can take donations. Urkel used to donate bikes for a bike rodeo. And we could take them as long as we weren't going and soliciting to businesses or anything else. And I think that's why that was written in there too, is because the organization is a fundraising because it was a volunteer fire department.
Are you looking for potential negative feedback from the fire department?
I'm
Trustee
concerned that
Hummel?
that happen and, you know, just that irritation kind of thing. And if there was a way to avoid some of that, maybe it's the wording even. That 4 would say something that it would follow, ordinance, whatever, it is,
Oh,
ordinance
1.15.
15 in terms of license and permits. That, something like that would, but to specify exactly the same thing that's in that ordinance, it just feels like, but you know, hey, it's just me.
Or- Sorry.
Can I
I
ask,
understand
is,
where you're coming from. You know,
Is-
I understand where he's coming from, but, you know, I think that the fire department, and I haven't talked to the chief, Lisi, on this, but, I think that they'll appreciate this. I mean, I think it kind of came into, I had questions when they did have the, venison feed or chili feed. And I wasn't aware and I don't think we had a really good understanding on a facility agreement. And this way, I think that it won't have to be brought for every event that they have, when they have their dance, when they have a fundraising. If they want to have a raffle or they want to have something, as long as they have the facility agreement and we have the dates, I think that they're gonna appreciate not having to come to the board every time. And then if they come in and say, yeah, we already signed this facility agreement and we're having a raffle this day.
Mhm.
And we're having, it's not, they can just inform us, but we don't have to vote on it every single time that they're gonna have an event.
Yeah.
I think that they're gonna appreciate that. I don't wanna speak for him without him being here.
Yeah.
But I do understand your concern with it being in two different places. I totally understand it. I have no objection of moving it all in one place, but I also don't have a problem with it in being two different places.
Maybe I have a solution. If the chief kind of actually said, yeah, actually, I requested it be in our ordinances. Done, fine deal. That he's not only he's supporting it. And that gets us away from us
Does
being the only
anybody,
ones.
did anybody, my question was, does anybody talk to Chief Lease and ask him if he's okay with this?
I just ran by that we were going to be getting an agreement in place so that this topic doesn't come up anymore, and he was definitely excited about that. I didn't get into him that we added this into it, but he was definitely glad that topic doesn't need to come up every year and have those conversation that we had back in December. So, and I can run this past him. I mean, you guys can make the motion and move it to the board if you like, and I can get him to respond back. And again, that's up to you guys. I'd hate to not see it get this agreement going. I'd hate to table it another month because I think we need to get it going. And we can wait on the fire department one too.
Can I ask? Go ahead.
Instead of putting it in the ordinance for chapter 5, do we put it in the employee handbook if your department is going to have some sort of fundraising, whatever, you need to follow chapter 12.15? Just
That would be all inclusive.
correct. That way we don't get the finger with it. Oh, there's finger pointing. It covers all employees.
Or you just leave it at 12.5
where
and get
would-
rid of the other.
Where would that go, President Mansell? What you're talking about?
I don't know. I'd have to look at the employee handbook, but
Because- Well, the original topic, it was in the fire department only, so that's not the right place because it's other organizations. So as long as we have it available to the people to use, I'm okay with that. If the chief lease is okay with it being here, I don't think it hurts. I don't want to single anybody out, but as long as the fire department's okay with it, they know that it's in there, because I don't think there's another chapter in our ordinances that it fits.
So what about just making a quick phone call and saying, and we could kind of agree pending,
Well,
pending.
efficiency.
We can amend it, I mean, and just put it under chapter 12.
Or you can make it with the chief approval. You can make this motion and
amend it.
it'll be in section 5.13 with chief approval.
Yeah, I hate
Okay.
to put that in writing because you might have another chief that says, well, I don't approve that. And
I mean, the
Let
problem
me,
is this is an athletic, I mean, this conversation that's why they get so carried away because
yeah,
this can go to athletic association, the chief has nothing to do with it because the athletic association actually runs these events and they got their own president, so I know where you're coming from, but I mean, we can sit here all night and
okay. well,
let me
I
ask
was-
let me ask
I've
one
had
quick
enough
question.
discussion Now that you've heard, and I'm done.
Yeah, I'm fine too.
Rick's trying to ask a question.
Let me just ask one question, and we're gonna move on, because we're only halfway through here. If we make the motion and push it to the board, we can also talk about it and modify it at the board level, right?
yes, and
Yeah.
I will get chief's approval with an email that I will make sure we attach to this motion. or in
So
the
this is
packet.
not the final approval, this is just moving it onto the board. So if, I hear from President Mansell, if we get it to the board and we have this discussion and something changes, we can modify it at the board level.
Correct.
Okay,
I think-
so with that, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think what I'd be interested in is the fire department okay with it, not approving it? Because approving it sounds legalistic
Correct.
and be
Correct.
okay with it is a different
Yeah.
level of understanding that stays away from anything that seems to be
Yeah.
singling them out.
So the motion is that we move it on to the board, pass it on to the board for bringing up as a motion to update the ordinances. So any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for the good discussion. For number 12, looking for a
Yeah.
motion.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Had a request here.
Nick had his
for
hand up
comment.
and I.
Nick off table has,
Okay.
you can-
Go ahead.
Okay,
You,
thank
you're welcome.
Real brief, obviously I'll have my 2 cents to contribute there. I think having it in a separate location amongst just the fire department operation is good for 2 different reasons. One, the exposure, because not only A, you're talking about village employees, but B, it's the biggest event we got. I
Today.
mean, yeah, for right now, I've never been to one of the Lions events. I don't know how big they can get. I don't know how rowdy they can get, but when you're talking from a risk management perspective about pure exposure, our exposure is larger with the street dance than it is with any other event that the village is associated with. So I don't think there's anything wrong, and I completely understand, trustee Hummel's point there of we don't want to single them out, but they're also the biggest potential for liability should something go wrong. So that's kind of why I'm okay with having something explicitly listed in their section in the ordinances. You can reference 12.15. You can change this here to say, the organization is responsible for signing the agreement pursuant to Village Ordinance 12.15. And then you cross-reference everything. So 12.15 covers everything that everyone does. However, 5.13 subpart 4 covers specifically the biggest exposure that we have with the fire department.
Great
Does
reminder.
that make sense?
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 12, looking for a motion on the retirement plaque or gift card for full-time employees as referenced in the packet.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Go for it.
so open for discussion.
So if you look back, it goes back a long time, most of you people other than Lon probably don't remember Roland Albee. This is where, we've got a village handbook that has a bunch of these policies that's been passed.
Literally.
So this basically was passed back in 1988, that, a plaque was presented to any full-time, basically full-time employee at retirement after 10 or more years. Been some talk about it. I'm looking, like I said, I put my recommendation there. My recommendation is to present a plaque or a $50 gift card, which I have a form that the employees before they retire would, fill a plaque or gift card to any full-time employee upon retirement who has been a full-time employee of the Village of Port Edwards for 5 or more years. And then this policy, we have a labor policy or labor handbook. We would add this policy to the labor handbook to cover this. So it's just a simple change in wording from going from 10 to 5 and giving the option of a gift card or a plaque. The plaques cost about $50. That's why I went with a $50 gift card. And I did ask employees, what would you rather have? Some told me plaques, some told me gift cards. So that's why I added them both in. I don't want to force anybody on a plaque and I don't want to force me on a gift card.
I think it's a great idea. I didn't get a plaque, so I don't know. I see this, now I see that this is, maybe I can go back and get a plaque, huh?
You talk to me after the meeting.
But I think it's a good idea. We've got to recognize our employees.
Okay, any other discussion?
Never mind. Mine's for the next one.
Okay. With no discussion, then I will ask that we make a motion to move it to the board. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all. Number 13, I'm looking for a motion on village board members receiving a plaque based upon discussion on the last 2 in our packet, I believe. Is that correct?
No, I have that says no information in the packet on it.
This is, yeah.
Okay,
Motion.
Do I have a motion?
We,
Did I miss it or not? We don't have a motion.
Motion, sorry.
Okay. And do we have a second?
You don't have a
There
first,
was
sir.
no motion.
There was no motion. Okay. Now, do we just move on, President Mansell?
If nobody wants to make the motion, yeah, then it dies.
Okay. Okay, then we'll move on to 14. Go ahead.
So I just wanted, obviously, when we're talking about retirement, I just want to make sure everybody was covered. Basically, the fire department has their own policies for retirement. I kind of added, what their policy was. This is nothing for motion, nothing for the village, just so that you guys are aware as board members that they have their own system in place. This is in their handbook. So there's nothing the village needs to be concerned about for firemen, and EMS retirement programs. They take care of themselves, have their own honorary board, do their own plaques, have their own athletic association memorial at the firefighters memorial. So this is just more of an update so you guys were aware that they're not included in the full-time employees because they have their own retirement program. So just an update. If anybody has any questions, I guess you can ask me. Otherwise, we can ask Chief Lacy, but this is their policy.
Any questions? I don't have any.
No.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to old business. Any old business?
I think we covered everything that I had.
Okay.
Kept you long enough, probably.
I just have a question about old business. We had talked at one point about developing a strategy to interact with our legislators, and I'm wondering if we ought to invest some time in developing a strategy and getting going on that, if there isn't one.
There is, and it's over the holidays, it's kind of stagnated. Now,
Yep.
President Mansell, go ahead.
Sorry, I was writing before. So I have contacted Krug's office and then as well as Tustin. So it was kind of a thing just to try to advocate for the village, DMI things, whichever. I'm still working at, there's questions sent back to me. So I'm just working on trying to answer all of those questions and make sure that I'm giving accurate information. A lot of this has to do with DMI property, YMCA. How can we get funds available in assisting with demolition of those, whether that be state, federal, and obviously for the purpose of economic development, or first of all, just getting it down. Even if DMI is the owner of it still, I think whoever owns it, whatever, because it may take years for that process to happen, for it to get funds this way for it. And I don't think that that's a bad thing to start on that. And again, regardless who owns it, whether it's DMI, whether it's somebody else, if we can help DMI demolish it without using village funds, but attracting state and federal dollars this way, that's kind of my angle on that. But if you would want to, I'll share what I have so far, or I'll share the email if you have anything you want to add to that. But I think it's important for board members to, and on bigger issues like this, to kind of reach out or even come together and write a letter of, which we can work on at a committee of the whole meeting, or however this plays out, of recommendations, a letter of support, kind of trying to get dollars this way. Look, this is where we're at. We have a plight. We have, all these different things. So I'm just still on the information gathering situation because there's a lot of information that you kind of have to dig through.
Yeah.
But if there's anything specific otherwise, I guess, because we all have that opportunity to reach out to whoever we want to.
Yeah.
do you think it'd be good, if we all sign one letter of recommendation
Sure.
to
Sure.
each, I don't know, whoever our representative, Krug. and
Yeah. So I'm
either
kind
one
of,
to the governor or whatever we
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
do.
And Senator Teston's the head of the finance committee.
Yes.
So I mean,
yep. So their
Yeah.
offices have talked about wanting to be on board and helping us this way. I just have been trying to gather information, and
well,
honestly, I fell behind.
if we,
So,
yeah, if at some point we want to get more FaceTime I think there's some of us that are willing to go down to
Mhm.
Madison and go face to face with them, and I personally would be
Yeah, and
fine
I
talking to
think
the
that was
governor
in my
about that
plan.
$400 million and how is that money getting appropriated where, all of it isn't going, or not all of it, but excessive chunks are going to certain communities, Madison. And how can we, participate in that as well? I just think that face to face with representatives has merit. Because they can read something and pass that off to an assistant and respond to that.
Mhm.
And, I'm just advocating for a consideration of, seeing if we can make an appointments and go down there and talk to them in person. Something to think about.
For that too.
I'm fully in support of if you wanna do that. I mean, do we have to have that as a board to say a person can, I mean, I
No.
think that's 100%
Yeah.
accurate.
What-
I think what I would like to do is like make sure I finish getting all the
Exactly.
thing and then send that off to them and then be like, hey, we have some representatives from the village that would like to go down.
Yeah.
Can we set up a meeting time, give you the same information? I don't think all of us need to go down there.
Correct.
That might be a little bit too much.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm more than happy to
Yeah.
work with that and with
That,
whoever.
that sounds really good, as long as we have consistent talking points.
Mhm.
'Cause I do think that's really important. It's like, hey, well, I got this
Mhm.
letter, but you're talking about something entirely different, and so what's going on with that? I mean, the consistency of it will be really important as well, so.
Yep.
Be glad to do that if you
Working
as president decide, yeah, well, let's get some face-to-face time with some of those people and figure out who might be really good to do that. And I'll volunteer to be part of that if you want.
I appreciate that, trustee Hummel. I think we need to finish what she's doing first and then we can reorganize and then
Yeah.
go to personally deliver it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other old business? Any new business? Hearing none, any correspondence? Number 12 after 16.
The numbers are all off on this one.
Hearing none, future agenda items, I would say DMI update, 160 market update, Cyber One update, and then the legislative contacts. Anything else? Hearing nothing. We can move on to number 14. The next meeting, go ahead. Yeah, the second 14.
14B.
14B, yes. Next meeting, I'm gonna propose February 26th at 6 PM. Hearing no issues, we'll set it then. And if there's no other discussion, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:03 PM. Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Have a good
Thanks,
night.
Rick.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.